Welcome to Women Inspired. I'm your host, Linda Ugolo. And on this show, I speak with women and a few cool dudes, all of them healers, artists, changemakers, and entrepreneurs, about what fires them up and how they put their dreams into action. And I'm really excited today to have as my guest a speaker, author, and talk show host, Steph Palermo. Welcome.
Thank you, Linda. I'm happy to be here.
And I'm excited that this is our second encounter.
Yes.
So I got to be on your radio show.
That's
Tell us
right.
about your radio show.
Well, it's really based towards all aspects of healthy living for what I've coined as second lifers. We're empty nesters, newly single, and those starting over. And it's essentially the over 40 crowd, but 50 years ago, we were old. Now we're running marathons, we're fine dining, we're, night clubbing, dating, all of those things. And there are so many issues now that we have now that they didn't have 50 years ago. So I like to talk about all aspects of physical, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual well-being for second lifers.
Yes, yes. And this is really important to you because of your personal story as well, right?
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about where you've come from and where it's brought you.
Well, I was born with a rare disorder, Poland syndrome, and it affects my right side and my right hand, and I had to live with having a limb difference my whole life, of course, so you can understand back being young and being bullied and being left out and not being able to do the things that everybody else was doing, tying my shoes, just the simple things that you don't even think about, blow drying my hair. Even to this day, I drop the blow dryer, I struggle. But it just every normal, everyday things that you don't even think about. So you couple that with being raised in a crazy Sicilian family, well, then you have me. So I had to deal with all of that, and a lot of that, being Italian, and everything was food-based. So everything we did, weddings, wakes, funerals, birthdays, holidays, it was all around food. And I used food to find the happy place. I never really thought I was an emotional eater until I realized that I was eating for the party to get happy, because regardless of the chaos that was going on in my house, we sat down and we ate as a family, or we had our cousins over, and it was always fun. So the weight became a problem. But I used the weight, I could hide behind the weight to hide the hand. So I had all of that and dealing with that, and dating or not dating, college, adolescence, getting married at a young age. I was young, I was 24, and really not taking myself into consideration when I was making decisions, not doing the best things for me in my life, and and thinking what was going to be better for me in the long run, in terms of a career, or even just feeding my own soul. And I spent 25 years doing for everybody but myself, and that included not taking care of my body. And that sort of trickles into the family. You don't have your own self-respect. And I think that it was a big problem for me. And when I started to get healthy, both physically and emotionally, I realized that I was not in the right place for me. So hence, I've been divorced for about 3 years now, and I had to sort of relearn how to live my life. I became a second lifer. I had to start working. I had to figure out, well, what am I going to do now? I've been raising my kids for 20 years. I have a degree in management communications. I loved radio. I did radio production in college, and I'm a great writer. I self-published my own book, and I blog. So I just started to do those things and build a business from there. But I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do.
So what was it that triggered the change for you?
I really believe, it was in 2008, I could not take how heavy I was. And I said, I remember calling a friend and saying, okay, I need that nutritionist number now. And I called them, I'm like, can you see me today? And she was like, no, well, I can maybe see you in 2 days or what. And I started, and I went to the nutritionist, and I lost 40 pounds at that time, but I was already down maybe 50 or so from my last baby. And he was born in 2004. So this was 4 years later. And so I'm about 100 pounds lighter than I was in 2004. And that started sort of a snowball effect of me taking care of me. Exercising, I box. I started to do box. When I put on the gloves, I'm like for 1 hour, I'm like everybody else. And maybe even better because I've been working at it, maybe better than someone, and I'm not comparing, but I'm as good as the people around me, and I'm just like everybody else. So
How did you choose boxing?
It was funny because I was in my gym in Atlanta, and I saw this boxing group that it was obviously new, and I approached the boxing trainer, and I said, hey, I saw you you're doing boxing. And he was for a boxer, boxers actually are very kind because they get all that aggression out in the bag. He said, hey, you want to give it a try? And come to find out, I was in Atlanta, he was from New Bedford, and he was a New England's Golden Glove champion.
And you're from that area?
I'm from Medford.
Uh-huh.
He's from New Bedford, I'm from Medford. But anyway, and so that started me getting on. I said, well, I wasn't quite ready to get into the class because I still had this fear of being looked at differently because I couldn't do everything. I couldn't do the jump rope. I couldn't do the push-ups. And if they were doing stations, I would slow everybody down. So I sort of wanted to take so I started private training, and then I started to get into the classes, and I was, fine after that. I mean, I still watch when I go into a class. I need to make sure that I'm not going to be a problem if I'm going to be slower, because everything is just a little bit slower. I mean, that's my reality. But so the boxing, the nutritionist, the weight loss, I had a little plastic surgery with a tummy tuck because I had 4 kids, and I did all that stuff to feel good about me, and then lots of therapy, lots of reading good books, books like Choice Theory and Boundaries, and all of the 4 Agreements, and all of the good books to help me to grow. And I realized that I was not in the place that I needed to be in terms of my marriage. And it's unfortunate. I have 4 children, and it's sad. No matter what, everybody gets hurt in a divorce. It doesn't matter. But it was very difficult, but it was not the place where I needed to be. And, and I had to deal with that, and I had to come to terms with, and this is funny because I talked about this not too long ago, but in terms of, in society, there's a line drawn in the sand when there's divorce. And we were in a very affluent community with very wealthy friends and families in our children's school, and I had to come to grips with the fact that I may not get invited to these events. I may not get invited. I may not be part of the crowd anymore because I'm leaving, and I knew that my happiness was worth more than the money. And I had to give up travel and all of that, but it wasn't as important to me. I knew that my happiness was not based upon the almighty dollar.
So you mentioned you have a book.
I do.
What's the name of your book?
It's called The Only Way Is Up, and it's just Steph's perspective on life.
Uh-huh.
And basically what I did is I had been writing my blog, and I put it all together, and I separated, I put them in sort of categories, and I wrote a little bit before each category, sort of describing what was coming up. And it's little stories. I'm a short storyteller, so there's short stories on how I got comfortable in my own skin. And it's funny because when I look back at the book I published in 2013, and I've even come so far from that. So I'm in the midst of putting together another book sort of to follow up on it.
So, like, how would you describe what it was like to have a difference? I mean, was it like, were you angry at life for handing you this situation? Was it, did you feel like did you take it upon yourself? Like there was, what would help us to understand what it's like to have a difference? And do we all deal with these things, or is it?
I think everybody has differences, seen or unseen.
Okay, talk about that.
I think it's more difficult on a social level when it's seen. You can sometimes hide it when it's unseen. However, it comes out somewhere. And as far as being angry, I felt that I didn't choose this. A lot of us, most everything we do is based on choices. Most everything, if I, have a bad day, a lot of times it's the choices I've made. Or if I don't feel good, maybe it's the choices I've made in food or drink, whatever. A lot of times, most times, whatever we're feeling is a result of a choice. This was not a choice for me. And so that could be frustrating. So I'm sure that I dealt with anger. I've dealt with the anger of all that. However, what it was like for me, well, I had to have lots of surgeries to get better mobility. And they took bones out of my toes and out of my legs and gave me bone grafts. And the problem with that was I would a lot of times return back to school with like contraptions and everyone was staring at me. And that was very difficult when you're, 10. So that's hard. Plus, I couldn't do the stuff that everybody else was doing. I couldn't, play softball. I love softball. I would have loved to play softball. And, it's difficult. There are ball players, Jim Abbott was a lefty pitcher for the New York Yankees, and he is missing his right hand. But he was fast with the glove, So there are people that do it, and I go, wow, they're great, But, for me it was difficult. So I couldn't really do a lot of the stuff, and then I didn't want to even try because out of fear of humiliation and embarrassment. So that was a lot of it. There was a lot of shame there. And I had really great friends. And there were times where people were not nice to me. And even as an adult, I've had that. However, that's such a small fraction. I mean, such a tiny, tiny piece. However, every day when I go out the door, and I have to say this, people can choose courage. I can't choose it. I have to be courageous. Because if I'm not courageous, I'm not going to get out of the bed. So every day I have to muster up the courage, and not that I think about it on a daily basis, I just do what I do. But I have to muster up the courage to get out of the bed, try to blow dry my hair, go to the boxing gym and try and do push-ups like everybody else, or whatever they're doing. I have to meet new people and face the reality that somebody may freak out on me. And they have. They have go, oh my gosh, what happened to you? And screaming and yelling and all this. And I'm going, it's all right, I'm okay. So that's my reality. And I don't know when that's going to happen. And I know that I'm on a lot of Poland syndrome support groups like on Facebook. And I posted some of my blogs that I've written about this. And the responses that I get, like, oh, this happened to me in the grocery store, or that, this, and it's just it's a reality. It's just a reality. But it's, my normal is very different. I had a meeting the other day with a lovely woman who's an amputee. She had a terrible accident. For me, it's much harder to have something and have it taken away than for me. I've lived with this my whole life, so I'm doing it this is how I live. This is, peeling potatoes has always taken me a long time. Peeling carrots, I'm very, a little klutzy because I slip in the kitchen. So, and I love to cook. I'm Sicilian. So, that's my reality. That's what it's like. I mean, the reality of living with the difference is you have to deal with yourself and your limitations. You have to deal with doctors' offices and nurses and whatever's going on in your world in that medical, to help you be more functioning. And you have to deal with the people around you, whether they understand or don't understand, whether they're really close to you or they're not, and how they interact with you.
Yes. So two questions. What would you recommend to people who have a difference in how to thrive in the way you've learned to thrive?
Well, I think the first thing I would say, and I know this is going to be a little crazy, if you need help, ask. So if you need to get to a therapist or if you need to talk to somebody, talk to somebody. And I think most importantly is maybe the people around, if you surround yourself with good people who encourage you to do good things for yourself, who are always there uplifting you and are behind you, I think that's really important. I think, a good network of support, support network is really the way to go with that. And a good therapist, and taking care of your body to the best of your ability so that you can feel your best. And then if, whatever you need to do to, walk away from toxicity, or because when you already feel bad about yourself, a lot of times you align yourself with people who enable that.
Who can
continue it, because that's where you're comfortable. That's what I did in my life. And when I started to realize that, and I started to realize my worth and how much value I bring to the people in my life, then I realized that I wasn't being appreciated for that, and I had to take a step back and walk away from that. So you need to get your head right. Start turning the thoughts around, positive thoughts. Turn the way you think about yourself first, because you can't expect anybody around you to feel good about you if you don't.
So what would you recommend to somebody who isn't feeling good? What's a step or two that they can take?
Well, I think the first thing, it depends on how bad it is, because if they're really in a crisis situation, really they need help from a therapist. But I think the first thing to do is to start reading some good books that help you to change your thinking. Books like Choice Theory by, I think it's Glasser. And, Don Miguel Ruiz writes a lot of books about, the 4 agreements and it's the voice of, he wrote a book called The Voice of Knowledge and The Mastery of Love. 5 levels of attachment. All of these books that help to change. Don Miguel talks about our domestication, and we've been domesticated to think a certain way, and we have to sort of change that and unwind it. And how we feel about ourselves is usually a direct correlation to what has been surrounding us.
So you want to change both what's going on inside, how we think ourselves, and also create an environment that is more uplifting.
Right, and positive.
And positive, great.
And be around positive people.
That's great, yeah.
And laugh. That's number one. You have to laugh. You have to, there was a lot, now about my hand when things aren't, I can make a joke, and I could never joke before. I didn't even talk about it. It was like this big secret that everybody knew. It's the elephant in the room that nobody's talking about. But now, like, I'll laugh about stuff that I can't, things that I can't do, and I'm like, oh well. But I could never do that. So you have to learn to be comfortable in your own skin so that you can find humor in yourself and laugh and joke about it with your friends and the people that are around you. So, and that makes their lives easier. I mean, think about that. When you're out, you know, I remember going out nightclubbing, and my best girlfriend, even, we'll talk about it today, she tried to protect me and hover and make sure that, you know, I was 21 years old. And now we can laugh about things together instead of it being so heavy. I don't need anybody to protect me anymore.
Right, right. So what would you say to other people who are those people who freak out, you know, when they see you? Like, what do you want the people to understand?
Well, I think that when you meet somebody, it's a little bit different. And I'm not going to take away from anybody, whoever's worse or whatever. I'm not saying everybody's suffering is their own. But if you walk in and somebody's in a wheelchair, you see that very easily. A lot of times you don't see my hand, so that when I go to extend a hand to shake, because it's my right hand, people go, oh, 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 you know. And so what I would say is chill. You know, it's okay. You know, if I had something that was that was catchy, I wouldn't touch you. You know, but it's not catchy. You're not going to catch my rare disease by shaking my hand. It's okay. So I think that for people who are dealing, if they run into somebody who has a difference, you know, everybody has something. You know, it's funny because I'll be out and if I just started talking about all this in the last few years, and I would be talking to somebody, say, brand new in a restaurant or at a bar, and they would say, oh, did you know I have like 6 toes, or I have one ear lower than the other, or my sister has, you know, one leg shorter than, you know, everybody has something. So I would say just realize that everybody has some difference, everybody has something, and that we have to treat everybody with dignity and love and respect, just like we want.
Great. And what are the possibilities? What do you see as the possibilities? What are you excited about?
Oh, you know, I'm so pie in the sky. I'm just so all about the, you know, like, I just think I can change the world. That's what I think. I think the world can change. I think people can love unconditionally. I think if they start with themselves, they can love. They need to love themselves. Everybody's mad, and they're mad at everybody else, but they're mad at themselves first. So if you can get happy and you can love yourself, you can love anybody, and the world can change. I believe that. People probably watch and say, oh, she's so, you know, this is a fairy tale. I believe in the fairy tale. I believe in Prince Charming and the White Horse and all of that. I believe it.
It's fun.
That's just me.
Yeah. And what's up for you next?
Well, I've been really networking a lot in Boston. I have a speaking engagement for Women in Action. I'm speaking. I'm doing the education breakout session, and that's October 21st. I just got word of this yesterday. I'm going to be introducing a film and sort of emceeing it a little bit, and it's the Rare Disease Film Festival here in Boston, and it's October 2nd, and I believe it's at the Brattle Theater in Cambridge at 2 o'clock, and I'll be there opening for that, and which is exciting for me because I really want to get more involved with the rare disease effort to really just bring awareness. And so I want to do that. I'm going to be doing that. I'm also speaking. I attended Regis College in Weston, and I'm going to be speaking there on April 12th, 2018.
That's also in Massachusetts.
Yes, that's in Massachusetts, and I'm looking forward to being the first TV talk show host with the limb difference.
That's great. Well, we'll put all that into the show notes.
Perfect.
Yes. So I have my box of Wildcards, and I'd love for you to pick one and just give us your wisdom on it.
Okay, let's see. Okay, what does this say? I can't read it. I don't have my glasses on. Oh, boundaries. Perfect. Ah, love it. Okay. Especially those who come from situations where the self-esteem is very low. they don't establish healthy boundaries. If you establish healthy boundaries in your life and you respect your own boundaries, you will change your world, because you won't be so heavy and you won't be complaining about the things that you did because you didn't want to do them, or the fact that somebody infringed their, what they wanted on you, or somebody imposed on you, because you've established healthy boundaries. And you said, no, this isn't going to work for me. Or yes, I can do this. So it's very important for your own well-being, and especially as a second lifer, I've noticed that I'm able to say in my relationships, this isn't going to work for me, or I did all this and I'm tired and I need a break, or, where I think I would have just ran myself into the ground years ago, and I don't do that anymore. So you have to establish healthy boundaries. If you want a happy existence that you don't exert a lot of energy on the negative, establish healthy boundaries. Find out your beliefs and what you love and what you want and what you don't want, and stick by it.
Wonderful. How can people find you online?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter at Steph Palermo. I'm on Instagram, Just Steph1, Pinterest, Snapchat. I have a YouTube channel, and also juststeph.com.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. I had a blast.
It's great.
A lot of fun. Thank you.
So, I'm somebody who likes to help people who want to get comfortable being seen and heard without the nerves. And if that's you, and you have a presentation coming up either on camera or live in person, be sure to grab my free Fear to Fabulous blueprint, Mastering the Inner Game of Speaking Live or on Camera. And you can get that at lindaugelo.com/blueprint. Linda Ugelo, UGELOW.com/blueprint. And thanks so much for coming on to Women Inspired, and I hope you tune in to the next episode. Oh, 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 oh.